Good deal. So, no silly intro today, sound issues aside, because this is not a silly stream. It's actually so serious, I want to be able to read my introduction just in case any of Watchtower's lawyers happen to be watching. Because if you know anything about cults, it's that they hate criticism. Vocal critics within the group will be excommunicated and labeled by the leadership as evil betrayers to active members. Scientology is famous for weaponizing the legal system against its most vocal ex-members in attempts to shut them up, or when it comes to anonymous whistleblowers, unmask them. In Watchtower, the entity behind Jehovah's Witnesses is no different. In 2019, for example, they sued a random Redditor called Darkspilver. Why would they do that? Why would Watchtower sue somebody on Reddit? Well, Darkspilver posted a picture of one of Jehovah's Witnesses' widely distributed publications. It was just literally the picture of a back of the Watchtower, and he posted it on Reddit. And that was it. Yes, it really was that stupid. Watchtower filed a false copyright claim and wasted hundreds of thousands of donated dollars to unmask a Redditor who didn't even leak internal information. Watchtower lost the case. Okay, just want to make sure we're still able to hear me. Okay, good deal. Even though the earlier sound issues have been clipped out of the stream in the far-flung future. So, around the same time Watchtower was suing Darksilver, they also sued a guy who made cute stop-motion Lego videos poking fun at Jehovah's Witnesses on YouTube because in one of them he showed a clip of one of their real videos. It was also stupid and based on false copyright claims. They lost. And what little press these cases generated was bad for Watchtower. It made them look really bad and petty and small, and so probably that's why they haven't done this in a few years. And it seems that they have regathered and are finding a new approach to attempt to silence their critics. So, this time, in January of 2024, according to publicly available court documents, Watchtower sued not just some random internet ex-member, but the most respected Watchtower whistleblower, Mark O'Donnell. Let's go to this. I am looking at courtlistener.com. I will post the links to this stuff in the description later as well, so you can follow along, but you can pretty much find this stuff on Google. So, if you don't know, Mark O'Donnell was a lifelong Jehovah's Witness who, like many, left the group due to finding out about its widespread cover-up of child sexual abuse. And since leaving, he's become an independent journalist dedicated to covering CSA within the religion. He has assisted with countless investigations as an expert witness, has appeared in multiple documentaries, and runs a website dedicated to exposing the group's CSA scandals. In my opinion, Mark O'Donnell has caused the most material damage to Jehovah's Witnesses since the passing of former governing body member Ray Franz, and he exposed the group's internal practices back in the 80s and throughout the early 2000s. And I mean material damage in terms of money and reputation from lawsuits. When prosecutors or journalists investigate Watchtower, Mark O'Donnell is generally there to fill them in on all of the legal shenanigans the group is likely to use, the ways Watchtower's legal team is likely to lie, the way their internal hierarchy works, etc. So Watchtower is suing him. Now, I said Watchtower, but the case itself is pretty novel as far as I can tell. I am not a lawyer, as I'm sure I will reiterate many times throughout this stream, but the case, as I see it, is almost structured like a class action suit where multiple individual congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses in Pennsylvania are jointly suing Mark for allegedly wiretapping. And by wiretapping, Watchtower means Mark logged into a Microsoft Teams meeting one time, and Watchtower didn't realize it until Mark later spoke in vague terms about it in YouTube one time. So we've got a lot to get into today. Hey everybody, that was the end of my script. I ran out of script. Hope everybody's good and can still hear me. we're going to get into basically what the publicly available information is. As I said, am not a lawyer. And as we're recording this, Mark has not given like a public statement. I did just kind of reach out to Mark and confirm that he was okay with me talking about this stuff on a stream. You know, obviously he couldn't really give me any information that's not already available. But I believe he is working on some kind of response with his lawyers, right? I would assume that anything he says publicly now is going to be under intense scrutiny. So I haven't really heard much, but I wanted to weigh in on this because it's a pretty big deal. I've really never seen anything like this. So like I said, and let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I think if I do this, full screen layout. Oh God, it doesn't even, it just goes full screen for me. It like doesn't make it different for you guys at all. Okay. Sorry, StreamYard problems. Just get real close to your monitor. It'll be fine. So this is called Burnholm Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses v. O'Donnell. And you can see this was filed January 22nd, 2024, literally on my birthday, and they didn't even include me. The last update was December 10th, as we will see, and the cause is wiretapping. Okay, so the tricky thing about this, right? If you've never been on a website like this before, like Court Listener, not all of this stuff is publicly available if it's filed under seal, right? So Watchtower filed everything under seal. We can't click on any of this stuff. Even if you click buy on Pacer, you can't actually buy this as far as I know. I think it would just give you a subscription to whatever this service is. So the first publicly available document is by Mark O'Donnell and his defense. And in fact, everything that you're able to see is only Mark's side of the story so far, save for one thing, which we'll be able to look at. So right there, you're kind of seeing the way Watchtower operates. They don't just want to like do this stuff. They want to do it entirely like secretly. Okay, so it's a civil suit. Good question from Jennifer M. And we're hearing it is a civil suit. Again, not being a lawyer, I don't totally know what the difference is, as other than Mark would not face prison time for a civil suit. I guess he would just face monetary sanctions. So let's get into why this is weird. First of all, let me see. I've got a link to this. I think should give us what we want. Just taking a long time to load. Shoot. Yeah, I don't know why this one file in particular is like taking a while. God dang it. Hang on. All right, I'll come back to it. Sorry about that. So if we go through this, so it's filed by the Horsam Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, the Worcester Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, the East Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, Mount Pleasant Congregation, Spanish Congregation, Coventry Congregation, et al., right, and including the Burnholm Congregation. So there's a lot of individual congregations, and the way witnesses are set up is a little weird. Like, different congregations can meet in the same building. So, you know, I don't know if these are, like, how many of these are located in different kingdom halls. Not that that would technically matter. But if we look at the first publicly available thing here, man, it's not wanting to load anything from Court Lister. Oh, no, okay. It finally pulled up. Just so you can see I'm not making this up and there are actual documents. So Mark demanded a trial by jury. And from what I understand, that usually means that you're confident in your case because you feel like you can make a case to a jury of your peers and they will take your side, right? But this doesn't give us a lot of information, this thing alone. So, God damn it. And now Bo is being this way. And I just cursed. I cursed for the first time on screen. I'm so sorry. Hopefully Bo will chill out. I don't know why I can't open the one document that it would be really great for me to, okay, cool. It finally worked. Here we go. Download this in the background just in case. All right, so here is basically what Watchtower is alleging. They want all this stuff to be under seal and to remain under seal, right? So they don't want any of the stuff that they're filing to be made public because they know that, like, we could make fun of it or talk about it on streams like this. They generally know that it makes them look bad. And I think that that is a disparity that's important to note, that, like, the ex-Jehovah's Witness who is trying to expose corruption within the group is perfectly happy having all of this out in the open, and it is the secretive religion who's currently under grand jury investigation for child sexual abuse in the state of Pennsylvania, and where multiple arrests have already been made. They want to be secretive for some reason. So let's read a little bit of this. Plaintiff's brief in opposition to defendant O'Donnell's motion for unsealing of the docket for entry of a limited protective order. The summary of how all that played out, by the way, like both parties went back and forth about like how much of it could be made public, and they were able to come to an agreement on some kind of protective order that were like some of this stuff will be redacted, personal information of individual Jehovah's Witnesses and the congregation involved, but other stuff will not. So we should be able to follow this going forward while seeing Watchtower's perspective of it. So plaintiffs Burnholm Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses et al., which we're doing because it's multiple congregations, respectfully request that this court deny defendant Mark O'Donnell's motion to unseal the docket. The only thing more secret than a grand jury investigation is a wiretapped, privileged conversation about that investigation between subjects of the investigation and their attorneys. Since this entire lawsuit arises from an ongoing Pennsylvania grand jury investigation, and no part falls outside of that setting, this court should treat this case like a grand jury case and continue to seal the entire docket / all documents, at least until the investigation is concluded. So the fact that this grand jury investigation is happening is not private. Like, it's in the news in Pennsylvania. Like, you can watch clips online from their local news affiliates covering various arrests. I think there was just one in December, actually. We can look at that later. But yeah, basically it's not private. And so one thing that's challenging when we're talking about this is, like, they're not clear, at least in the information that we have available, in what exactly Mark did that was illegal. The interview in question that they're alleging he leaked information on is no longer available. It was on JT and Lady C's channel, JW Critical Thinker. They're a very respectable platform, and Mark is a very respectable guest. And I mean, I've talked to Mark once or twice on the channel, and he's generally quite careful in what he says. So I'm curious to see what it is that they think he crossed the line on. We get a little bit of it in this document, but we still don't know like what their initial thing was. I only mention that because from what I have seen, a lot of times Watchtower will kind of change their story as their cases drag on. And so I'm kind of curious to see if what they say here would line up with whatever their initial filing was, but that's that's neither here nor there. Also, please continue to sound off in chat. I will make sure to get to your comments after we get through a little bit more of the substance of what's happening here. But yes, in this document, Watchtower is saying, we don't want any of this stuff to be made public. Mark does want this stuff to be made public. You should take our side. Let's just read the rest of this. And then there's some individual bullet points that I find interesting. In the alternative, this court should not attempt to decide contested issues about what parts of the docket records are safe to unseal until the conclusion of discovery. As explained herein, the determination of what constitutes a matter occurring before the grand jury is notoriously difficult to pin down under both federal and Pennsylvania law. Given the privacy interests at stake and the permanent effect that the decision to unseal any information will have on the congregations and their elders, attempting to draw such lines at this early juncture in the litigation by way of redaction/protective order would be a risky endeavor. For example, Mr. O'Donnell disputes the origin of some of the information the congregations allege came from the intercepted conversation between the congregations and their attorneys, claiming it originated elsewhere. Pause, I need to take a sip of my coffee. So let me zoom out and provide some more context. We'll get to what their specific allegations are. But, okay, there was a Microsoft team meeting. From what I gather, again, I don't know for sure, take this with a grain of salt. From what I gather and what we'll see later in this particular filing, it kind of sounds like a PMO, physically in, mentally out member of one of these congregations sent a link to this Teams meeting to Mark, and he listened into it. He listened into the meeting. And Watchtower didn't know about it at the time, right? And then he gives this interview with JT and Lady C. And maybe he mentions that he listened into this attorney-client meeting. I don't know, because we can't watch it. And I might have watched it at the time, but I honestly don't remember. So that's kind of what it sounds like to me. Watchtower is saying Mark listened in on this attorney-client meeting that happened over Microsoft Teams, and he wasn't supposed to listen to that or repeat confidential information retained in this call. But the issue, in my opinion, is that, like, what information are they alleging was secret that nobody else knew about? Because a lot of this stuff is public knowledge. There are arrests being made fairly regularly in this case because the Attorney General in Pennsylvania is uncovering undocumented abuse, abuse that happened within Jehovah's Witnesses that they never reported to the police. So that's what they're doing, right? And the only people whose names would be in jeopardy, I would think, would be the victims of child sexual abuse. But we know that Watchtower doesn't care about that, which is why they're fighting the investigation tooth and nail and trying to silence anybody reporting on it. So I don't know. It just doesn't really make any sense to me, because what would he have said that constituted a breach of confidentiality in this law proceeding? It seems to me that they're just a little annoyed that they didn't realize it, because I don't think that's wiretapping. First of all, the way they describe this and try to justify it later is funny. But if one of the parties there sent him an invitation, then he was invited to attend. And then it's just the Watchtower didn't realize it. And maybe they felt a little embarrassed afterward. We have no idea. Those forms of communication are not secure. If anything was said that needed to be under lock and key, maybe don't use Teams or Zoom. I know. I mean, this is a little bit of a problem with the case. And given Mark's role as a journalist, and without being able to see this YouTube video, that's a problem. Presumably, the video will have to be submitted to evidence, which, ironically, may be the only way that we're able to see it in the future. So, I don't know. Anyway, I want to skip past this because I think we can jump to what they're referring to. They have all these bullet points. Oh, shoot. Is this not the one that I was thinking of? I guess it's not. Okay, I'm going to try and find that real quick. Let's look up. What's this thing called? Burn Home? Something Home? Burn Home Congregation. Don't know. Yeah, and shout out to this post on the subreddit because I believe the document I'm trying to find was actually posted just by this random user, and I didn't see it. I think this is the one that we want. So actually, yeah, credit where credit is due to a person who posted a link to a publicly available document, just for the record, in Sorsalady. I probably didn't say that right, but you're a real one, and you're helping us out. So thank you for that. Okay, so this gives us like a pretty like clear bullet point version of what Watchtower is alleging here. So the first ones that come to mind, and maybe we can go through some other ones. I think starts at like 104. Okay. Here we go. Now, just for people who don't normally watch my show, it is normally a bit sillier, and we have sound drops. And obviously, I'm not going to play the full thing, but I do need to take a sip of water.
The water of life.
Sorry, just had to take a little sip of water and play the water of life sound drop. Let me try and make this bigger so it's a little bigger on this. That's better. Okay. So these are their allegations for wiretapping, I think. Wait, this is count 2. What's count 1? That's the introduction. Sorry, I had all this stuff laid out, and then StreamYard's being stupid. So now I'm like scrolling through. Oh, hey, look. Okay, so this is the YouTube video. They don't... Wait, whoa, there's a link to it. Oop, okay, yeah, it's not available anymore. As I kind of assumed would be the case. But anyway. On or about February 19th, 2023? Whoa, okay, so this is going back a ways. And wait, so they didn't file until January 2024? That's sus. So I just searched the name of this case, Burnham v. O'Donnell XJW, and this post came up. Lava Blue. So this is what they're alleging happened in the YouTube video, but lest we forget, the first filing was January 22nd, 2024, and they're saying that this YouTube interview that constitutes the breach of confidentiality happened in February 19th, 2023. So not exactly, I don't know, where's the industriousness that I always heard about as a Jehovah's Witness? That's asleep at the wheel, if you ask me. On or about February 19th, 2023, O'Donnell participated in an interview that was recorded and posted on YouTube. YouTube automatically generates a transcript of the video, the text of which was copied and pasted into a document. See Exhibit A. Well, my first concern with this is that YouTube's automatically generated transcripts are not always accurate. So I don't know. The video is entitled Jehovah's Witnesses Legal Woes, Washington State. During the interview, and they give the timestamps, O'Donnell reveals detailed information about the state grand jury investigation much of which could only have come from the meeting. And we have no way of knowing whether this is true because we can't see the video. We can't see what they're alleging. So isn't that convenient? I would only say that, yeah, I mean, until we know what they're even saying, we can't even know if they're right. Gosh dang it. Upon information and belief? What? Upon information and belief, O'Donnell was able to disclose such detailed and specific information because he recorded the February 16 Teams meeting without the unanimous consent of the 11 Montgomery County congregation's body of elders. How do we know that? How do they know that he recorded it? O'Donnell accessed not only the audio portion of the meeting, but also the video portion. O'Donnell's YouTube interview describing the February 16th Teams meeting was also posted to the website Reddit and was endorsed by John Redwood, which is his pseudonym on Reddit. Weird. I'm just trying to figure out, like, how would they even know that he recorded it? And is the allegation that he recorded it, or that he talked about what he heard at the meeting during a YouTube interview? Okay. So here's what they're saying. Oh, look, they have the phone number listed. Presumably that meeting link is now dead. The attendance report revealed that someone with the phone number, presumably, oh shit, wait, that might be his phone number. Damn it, sorry. Logged into the meeting approximately 30 minutes before the designated start time and stayed in the meeting for its duration, approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes in total. And so they're insinuating this is his phone number. Why wouldn't his personal phone number be redacted, by the way? Upon further information and belief, O'Donnell logged into the confidential Teams meeting 30 minutes before the meeting start time in order to obscure his presence at the meeting. Why is that more obscure? Isn't it more suspicious if somebody is logged in early and you can see their phone number? This is a big issue that I have with this premise, is that the fact that he called in early, and he, like, the host of the meeting would be able to see that he was there and would be able to see that there was a person from that area code calling in. So what is the problem here? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not going to delete the entire live stream. I can try and snip out that part where I showed it, but I mean, you're wrong that it was not previously publicly available, because it was. This is a publicly available document, and it's just there. So anybody who ever read this could have done it. And that's my bad. I thought it was just the phone number needed to call into whatever this meeting was. So first of all, people just be cool and don't harass Mark. Presumably he's changed his phone number anyway. Sorry, where were we? Upon further information, he logged into the Teams meeting using his phone number rather than his name to conceal his identity during the meeting. I don't know if that is true, but so basically he's saying they're saying that he called and listened in. Now they have to prove that there was harm done. I think this is also a little thin, because surely the harm done is because there is a grand jury investigation happening, and that's like been on the news, and the attorney general has done multiple press conferences about it. Like, I think that's probably the damage, and the damage is because Watchtower was protecting pedophiles. You know, they were not protecting them because they love them so much, but because they're deeply embarrassed about the fact that these things happen in their religion, and they don't want it to get out there. They like to handle everything internally, even though they have nominal rules about how elders, that people like have the right to call the police. The internal elders manual still advises elders to not call the police, to first call the Watchtower legal department, and the legal department will then direct the elders on what to do. And the legal department, by the way, speaking of being sussy and hiding your identity, when elders call the legal department, they are not given names. They are given like little codes. of somebody. And usually they're talking to a paralegal. They're not given the name of that paralegal, just a code to protect the identity of the person in the legal department. And then they just are given orders on whether or not it's a mandatory reporting state. And sometimes even when it is, they don't report. I mean, that's why Watchtower's in trouble, is because there are times when they have run afoul of the mandatory reporting laws, right? So they're grasping for legal action. Yeah. If Mark let the number in, it's no longer act. Yeah, presumably. I mean, like, this is, from what we can tell, the result of this agreement that both parties reached as to what was confidential and what's not. All that being said, I do feel bad about that phone number being on the screen. So I am sorry, and I will attempt to snip it out afterwards. It just sometimes takes a few hours for YouTube to actually save those changes when I do that. So stay tuned. Sorry, let's get to the harm that they're causing. As a result of O'Donnell's actions, each plaintiff congregation suffered a palpable injury in fact in its own right, consisting of the invasion of its legally protected interest in the privacy of its privileged communications, intrusion upon seclusion, and disclosure of those unlawfully intercepted communications causing reputational harm. O'Donnell's actions also adversely affect each plaintiff congregation's ability to redacted. I don't know what this means, right? They're basically saying that the fact that he listened in at all was the damage. That it's damaging that somebody who wasn't supposed to be there was there. I think that's what they're saying. These injuries are concrete because they have a close relationship to an intangible harm that is actionable under Title III, blah, blah, blah. O'Donnell's actions in ways that are difficult to measure at this time and impairs each plaintiff congregation's ability to pursue its mission by forcing it to divert time, effort, and or resources that could be better used elsewhere to counteract O'Donnell's conduct in the future. I don't... Yeah, what does that mean? Sorry, I want to skip ahead to how they justify this being wiretapping because I think it's kind of funny. We get to the 100s. Okay. So, 100. O'Donnell intercepted the wire or electronic communications made during the team's meeting on February 16th, 2023, defining intercept to mean the oral or other acquisition of the contents of any wire, electronic. Sorry, I get a little choked up. Or oral communication through any use of electronic, mechanical, other device, blah, blah, blah. O'Donnell used an electronic, mechanical, or other device to intercept the wire or electronic communications made during the team's meeting. O'Donnell did not simply dial into the meeting using his telephone, but rather used his smartphone as a computer by accessing the video portion of the meeting, describing the attorneys as men with beards. Maybe that's quoting something Watchtower said. Therefore, the telephone... maybe that's like referencing something Mark said in this interview, maybe. Therefore, the telephone exception does not apply. So they're trying to say, doesn't it seem like they're trying to say, sorry, got a little bit of a stutter. Doesn't it seem like they're trying to imply that when you hit the video button on a Zoom call that your phone turns into a computer? Like, I don't know about that. That seems a little spurious to me. Don't we all use our phones as computers? Like, this seems like I don't know about this. I don't know about this particular portion. By the way, Great point here. So Jenny Bloom says logging into an unsecure Teams meeting equals wiretapping. Masturbation equals self-abuse. Watchtower logic. So yes, that is how they define masturbation, as self-abuse. So we're grading them on a curve. You know, within Jehovah's Witnesses, not all words mean what they mean to everyone else. Like worldly can be a compliment outside of a high control, high demand religion. I already said cult earlier, so I don't know why I'm trying to be cagey about it now. It's so severe. O'Donnell's interception of the wire or electronic communications made during the Teams meeting occurred in Pennsylvania because the communications were captured and rerouted from Pennsylvania to Maryland, where O'Donnell resides. This is just how communication works. I'm also starting because I'm trying not to curse. This is just how it works. Like you watching this, I'm in Ohio, okay? You're not intercepting this from Australia or New Jersey or wherever you're watching. The two places where most of my audience is from, Australia and New Jersey. Um, this really feels trumped up. As a non-lawyer who doesn't know what he's talking about and isn't giving you legal advice, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't have a personal lawyer. O'Donnell disclosed and or used the wire or electronic communications made during the Teams meeting by revealing them during his YouTube interview and endorsing them on a blog in a matter not permitted by the act. Now, but this is the whole problem and why I probably don't have that much more to say about it. Although I think we should look at one of Mark's defense of this stuff that's publicly available. Because without being able to see this interview, we really don't know what they're talking about. So far, the only thing that seems specific that might be a part of this video is that the lawyers had beards, which Mark probably mentioned offhandedly as a joke because at the time, witnesses were not allowed to have beards. Oh boy, the conspiracy brain is activated, but it simply must be shut down at this moment. We don't know what they're alleging was a breach of conduct, because if all he said was there's a grand jury investigation happening in Pennsylvania and I was able to listen in on one of these meetings, that isn't anything, right? That's just him saying that there is a grand jury investigation and that he listened into it. But if he actually did name somebody in this meeting, like if he used their name in this interview and said, oh, and one of the suspects is Freddie so-and-so from the Spice congregation, not a great improviser, I don't know, like that would probably be some kind of breach of confidentiality. So we literally just don't know. And I do want to be clear about that. It is entirely possible that Mark ran afoul of some kind of confidential information. It's possible, but given the accuser, I don't think we should just take their word for it. They're known for lying in court and for trumping up charges and for trying to silence their critics. And Mark is probably their most effective critic when it's come to holding the group to account financially and legally. So it's kind of unclear to me how much of this we can trust from their side of it. But let's go to, let's see. I want to go back to just the normal court lister sites. But yeah, we legit don't know. And to be clear, like Mark has not made any public statements at this time. But we can see all of this stuff. We can see all of this stuff that's publicly available. So the motion to unseal the case. We looked at the trial by jury. That's not anything. I muted my mic to take a sip of coffee and then just spilled it all over myself. So that's the kind of competency you're dealing with here. This is the one of his motions to unseal the docket, the blanket seal on all these documents. Okay, cool. So this is useful. This gives us some background in terms of what Mark's side of the story is. So this is factual background posted by his lawyer. Maybe if somebody reminds me, I can talk a little bit about this law firm that the various congregations are using. I tried to do some digging, and there's not much there, but it's a little strange. Okay, so factual background. Defendant Mark O'Donnell is an independent journalist who was raised and baptized in the Jehovah's Witness Church. Mr. O'Donnell has reported widely on the systemic cover-up of child sexual abuse within Jehovah's Witness congregations and their associated corporations, including, but not limited to, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, and the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you're a witness peeping in here, or you just don't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses or how they operate legally, this is one of the really important things about them, is that they're broken up into all these different legal entities that, I don't entirely understand the mechanics of which part of it does which, but if you're a Jehovah's Witness or an ex-witness, you remember how at the conventions and assemblies, they'd be like, if you want to make a donation via check or money order, make it a payable to, and then they would say something like this. They would say one of these companies, or they would say, make it out to Watchtower, one word, or Watchtower, two words. It's because they've got all of these legal entities that they're funneling money into. We've recently covered on the channel their real estate assets, which they allegedly have tens of billions of dollars just in assets alone. So one thing that Watchtower will do in court to lie is they will say, for example, this happened with Garrett Loesch. Garrett Loesch is on record as saying, I am not a part of Watchtower, and Watchtower has no control over me, or something like that. Like, I don't answer to Watchtower. And he said that because, he's saying, I don't answer to Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, because illegally I'm a member of the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, they're able to be sneaky and get around accepting responsibility for certain things because of that. And the people who are at the most risk legally are elders. Like, all of this stuff is put onto them. The organization is set up in such a way that elders are far more likely to take the fall for something than the higher ups in the organization, like most corporations are, right? So anyway, since 2019, Mr. O'Donnell has consulted with the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office with, sorry, I clicked away. Has consulted with the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office with respect to a statewide investigative grand jury, which is investigating allegations of sexual abuse in the Jehovah's Witness congregation throughout Pennsylvania. Mr. O'Donnell has testified before that grand jury twice. Okay, so that's pretty important right off the bat, because he's been doing this since 2019, which means Mark has had knowledge of and has even testified in this grand jury long before this Teams meeting where they're accusing him of knowing stuff he wouldn't have otherwise known. As I understand it, that appears to be a little bit of a problem with their story. Plaintiff's complaint alleges that in February 2023, Mr. O'Donnell attended an online Microsoft Teams meeting between attorneys and congregation leaders from the plaintiff Jehovah's Witness congregations. As Mr. O'Donnell more fully explains in his answer, he attended the meeting by invitation from one of the attendees. Plaintiffs allege that the attorneys provided legal advice to the congregation leaders. Plaintiffs allege that Mr. O'Donnell then disclosed some of this information during an interview on YouTube. The existence of the grand jury at issue in this case has been publicly and prominently reported on for at least 4 years. Over the past year and a half, the Pennsylvania Attorney General has arrested at least 16 current or former members of Pennsylvania Jehovah's Witness congregations for the sexual abuse of minors. On October 7, 2023, the Philadelphia Inquirer reported charges brought by the Attorney General against 4 Jehovah's Witnesses for the sexual abuse of 19 children, noting that the charges stem from a grand jury investigation that started after a 2018 Inquirer investigation examined how witness leaders punished survivors after they reported abuse or sought help from police. I want to pause there for a second because this is so important when it comes to the disparity between what Watchtower, the harm that Watchtower is alleging, versus the harm that Mark is reporting on and has also personally experienced. Like, let's be real. Anybody who has left Jehovah's Witnesses has experienced abuse because shunning is emotional abuse. It is. That's why Jehovah's Witnesses were just defunded in Norway, because the mandatory systemic shunning of people who are locked into a contract, often because of something they committed to when they were children, is, in Norway at least, illegal. And there are other, European countries who might be moving in that direction. So Mark has experienced shunning, like a lot of us in this live feed right now. And so, like, this is a mega corporation with tens of billions of dollars and clearly no shortage of money to throw around frivolous legal charges, coming after somebody who has experienced abuses at the hand of the church and has dedicated his life to uncovering and exposing and holding to account Watchtower for the abuses that they commit to children. And like, I don't know Mark very well, but we've had a few conversations, one of which is on the channel, which you can go back and watch. But like, as I understand it, Mark funds all of his own stuff. He doesn't have a Patreon. He just has a business. Like, he has a day job, a business that he runs, and he uses that money to travel all over the world and report on this stuff. So the disparity in what the harm that Watchtower is claiming that they were caused by having some minor detail of a Microsoft Teams meeting said during an interview, and 16 pedophiles who were kept from the law because Jehovah's Witness leadership covered it up. Like, it's really gross. It's really, really gross. And without saying too much, anybody who like finds themselves on Watchtower's side here has lost their goddamn mind. This is just pure Scientology tactics. It's using a really weird and novel strategy to silence their most prominent critic. It's disgusting. Like, this is completely ridiculous. And think about this. Like, this is in addition to however many untold millions of dollars Watchtower is spending defending themselves in Pennsylvania. Like, they're spending so much money in Pennsylvania to try and continue to cover up child sexual abuse. But that's not too much of their money, because they still have some more money to do this, to do whatever this crap is. It sucks. Right. Christina said instead of paying out like reciprocity or what is it, reparations to the victims, they could pay reparations. They could pay damages to the victims. They could say they're sorry. They've literally never done that. They won't even say they're sorry. It's really, it's insane. And they're one of the only churches that is like that. And every time there's some big investigation, like ICSA in England and Wales, and in the Australian Royal Commission, and recently in New Zealand, Watchtower is consistently the one holdout where they refuse to even consider paying the victims or issuing a formal apology. Even that they will not do. So these guys are absolute ghouls. The legal department and higher ups of Jehovah's Witnesses are some of the most morally bankrupt people on the face of the planet. And also, they're fully indoctrinated into a cult and think that they're carrying out the Lord's business because they've been appointed by Jesus Christ. They're spirit-appointed men. Like, these are not well people. Sorry. I digress. In February 2023, the Attorney General brought charges against 5 additional Jehovah's Witnesses accused of sexual abuse of children, as part of an ongoing, oh wait, did I just read this? As part of an ongoing grand jury investigation of child sex abuse within the witness organization. Again, in July 2023, the Attorney General announced charges against 5 more Jehovah's Witnesses for raping and exploiting children as part of a Pennsylvania grand jury investigation into the organization's handling of sexual abuse cases. Plaintiffs acknowledge the publicity of these proceedings in their complaint. Quote, so they quote from Watchtower's complaint, this investigation has attracted some notoriety. I think we might have read that earlier. But basically what the defense is saying, like what Mark's defense is saying, is like this stuff is publicly available, and Watchtower even acknowledges that it has attracted notoriety in their initial complaint. So they can't really say that he's brought some like damage to the group of making something public that was already public. I'm just going to scroll through and see if we can find anything on. I don't think so. Okay, let's zoom out. I think for a second. Why was this happening? Well, yeah. I mean, we don't really know. It'd be interesting to watch that interview that Mark apparently did. Maybe we learn more about it. But yeah, like. As I think people have noted in chat, like this is something that big corporations can do. Like it's financial warfare. They just Jenny said that, so it just drowns the opposition in debt. In one of the documents I read, they're asking for like a certain amount of money a day for every day that the YouTube video had been up, and because it took them like a year to file complaints, it was something like. I can't remember if it was like over $30,000 or $300,000. I don't remember, but it's at least that, in addition to whatever legal fees. And I saw somebody early on ask like if Mark has some kind of fund for his legal fees. Not as far as I know. Okay, so this is Subcom Freak. Section 5725 is what they're suing over. Again, if it was a meeting to discuss legal business, you broke the law. You don't know that. You're just a random person in the comments section. I'm just kidding. I mean, I really don't. Like, you can't. Sorry, Subcom Freak 1. Like, I don't. None of us know. None of us have all the information. So you can't possibly say one way or the other if you broke the law. Like, you just have to, like. I don't understand how people are just like automatically saying like, "Oh yeah, Mark fucked up here." Like we don't know that actually. We don't have all the information. So forgive me if I'm not like falling over myself to assume that Mark O'Donnell is wrong. And I think there's also there's a question here. Like Mark is a whistleblower, right? And he is exposing child sexual abuse within a cult that in some cases is not otherwise known, right? So there is also a question of legal versus moral. This is something that whistleblowers run into all the time. Yeah, like. Yeah, see, there you go. Like, if someone gave him the link, maybe consent would be assumed, right? Well, his side says that someone did send him a link. That's what his lawyers are saying. So, yeah, we just don't know. There's a video in the Wayback Machine. Well, now I'm afraid that if I, like, play it, then I won't get in trouble. So, I for my own purposes, I might try and find it, but I'm not going to like show it. So yeah, all we know is that somebody at the meeting. Oh, okay. You know what? I'm glad we brought up the fact that somebody sent him this link, because I think that this is an important part of the equation that's going under-examined by me because I haven't talked about it yet. Like, they're going after Mark, but as I talked about at the outset of this stream, their history in what they have historically done is try to unmask PMOs within the religion. And even when they don't do it legally, they'll just do it. Like everybody who I've ever talked to on this channel, all the interviews I've done, says that as soon as they posted a video on YouTube even though they had faded and hadn't told anybody, it got found the next day, right? Like that. That happened to me as well. It seems like Watchtower is kind of trying to monitor YouTube to try and see what PMOs they can disfellowship. This happened to Ron Pomo, one of our good activists in the community who's always blowing the whistle. He was Ron Pimo for a while. He was physically and mentally out, but Watchtower made it their business to hunt down and find out who he is because he was leaking stuff from their public information department. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I don't even know that Watchtower is alleging that he wiretapped in the traditional sense of the word. It's almost like in their legalese that they're using, it's almost like they're acknowledging that all he did was click a link to join a thing, but he also turned on the video portion, and that means that his phone turned into a computer. I don't know. Kind of weird. This is my wife. If Watchtower doesn't want uninvited guests to their meetings, maybe they shouldn't be so haphazard with their Zoom team meeting links. Oh, so I don't think I ever finished my thought. If a PMO sent Mark this link, part of Watchtower's goal might be just to unmask who this PMO is, because that's a big problem for them, because that's somebody in the congregations who are under grand jury investigation. So maybe they're trying to kill two birds with one stone and not just silence, get one over their key whistleblower guy who's always making problems for them in the news. Maybe they're also trying to unmask this person who sent that link. But yeah, we're kind of limited in what we know right now, but it certainly seems to me that they're doing a slap suit. I don't remember what the actual definition of that is, but it's just a way that corporations try and shut up criticism by suing them, because it's easier to shut up than to pay a bunch of money. So, yeah, you'd think a billion-dollar religion with an obsession with secrecy would have kept the link a bit more secret. Yeah. We know the Watchtower is irresponsible. Yeah. And then it took them a year to do anything about this. So why is that? Did they intentionally wait so that they could craft something where they charge him for every single day that the video is out and therefore rack up potential fines that he would have to pay? I don't know. Again, I'm not alleging anything. I'm speculating in my capacity as an entertainer who plays a character on a show that's really fake and not even real. But here's what I'm thinking as somebody who leaks stuff sometimes, not of my own accord, by the way. It's always because somebody sends me something. It's always because PMOs within the group will send me stuff. The few times when they just send it to me, which normally they'll just send it to someone like avoidjw.org or the moderators of the XJW subreddit. And when somebody sends something to me, I send it along to Avoid JW as well, because YouTube, Jehovah's Witnesses do try and pin people down based on who's accessing what information when. So I've got a video that I'm going to be talking about later this month. Hopefully, I'm a little behind schedule on it, about a leaked video that was sent to me a year ago. It's a Bethel video that's not so damning that it needed immediate coverage or anything, but I had never seen this before, and there are people who've gotten disfellowshipped because a video is posted to Reddit, and then Watchtower goes into their little database and see which of their members have accessed that video recently, and then they go after that person because they can track who is accessing their internal database of internal videos that they have for training. So I kind of wanted to sit on it for a while so it couldn't be easily traced back to anybody. But I do actually have a leak to share today. I figured that's what we could get into in the next part of the stream, because somebody sent me. Oh, actually, I think I can. Well, now I'm worried about getting people in trouble or sued and stuff. But somebody sent me the Australian branch visits. The Australia branch of Jehovah's Witnesses had some special meeting. I don't know why they do this. It's almost, so most of it's boring because it's almost like a board of directors meeting, and there's a lot of charts about the growth that has happened in the region. They talk about the construction that's happening, like building new kingdom halls and stuff, and it's kind of boring. But some of it is kind of interesting. They've got some Bethel representatives there giving talks. I haven't really watched them. I just downloaded it last night to make sure that it worked and scrolled through what seems to be the boring stuff. And there's a couple parts I think are interesting. Sean Hudson says SLAP equals strategic lawsuit against public participation. Ah, yes. You don't want to know about their growth. I know, right? Okay, well, I need to take a little sip of water here, so we're gonna go on a quick break before we get to the Australia branch meeting.
It's interesting. So, planet Earth. Perfect. No.
I didn't say it was going to be a long break. Okay, if you like that kind of goofy crap, I've got a solid half-hour long, insane edit of the governing body doing silly stuff for members and patrons and stuff. If you want to see that, I accidentally released it public last night, but it's supposed to be members only because it's like a rough cut. It's not totally done, but it's very silly. Now let us watch. Ooh, you know what? I'm realizing something. Am I going to be able to show this? Because it's like in a video format that I don't know if it's represented, or sorry, if it's compatible with StreamYard. I should be able to do it somehow. Hang on a second. It's like not an MP4. It's something weird. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh my god, guys. Mike Rinder just died. Whoa. I'm on, I'm pulling up Instagram, just pull up this link to this meeting. So this is a post. If you don't know, Mike Rinder is one of Scientology's biggest apostates. I guess this is by his wife. Jeez, I want to read this. Mike Rinder's stuff has been really, really important to me over the years. His stuff is incredibly valuable even to our channel because he's a guy who was a higher up in a cult and understands how their tactics work. And so, yeah. My goodness. All right. So it says, rest in peace, my sweet, beautiful husband. I speak for so many when I say the sadness and pain we feel mirror the depth of our unwavering love for you. Your courage, bravery, and integrity are unmatched and will forever inspire us. You have been the pillar of stability in our lives, filling our days with your strength, wisdom, love, laughter, and devotion. The world will remember you. My best friend, my hero, my love, Michael John Rinder. Sharing these last words as per Mike's wishes. Oh boy. If you are reading this, I have shuffled off this mortal coil in accordance with the immutable law that there are only two certainties in life, death and taxes. My blog will remain as an archive of more than 4,000 posts, 300,000 comments. It has been a labor of love and passion, which has allowed me to speak my mind and offer my perspective with no outside filters. I have been lucky living 2 lives in one lifetime. The second one, the most wonderful years anyone could wish for, with all of you and my new family. My only real regret is not having achieved what I said I wanted to do, ending the abuses of Scientology, especially disconnection, and seeing Jack into adulthood. If you are in any way fighting to end those abuses, please keep the flag flying, never give up, and please, if you are able in some way, help Christy and the boys to move forward into the next chapter of their lives. I know many of you will be inclined to send flowers. I ask you not to. Instead, contribute to Jack's college fund. Unfortunately, this is a government site, so it's not very user-friendly. If you want to use a credit card, click the donation button and Christie's will redirect. Let the flowers grow and look to the future. With that said, I rest in peace, Mike. Damn. That is so sad. Oh my god. Okay, I have to stop sharing this screen for a second so I can access this link. Man, oh man, that is such... Winder. Did I say it wrong? Throat cancer, apparently. Man, oh man. Yeah, this is the guy who worked a lot with Leah Remini. He was, kind of their PR guy, and having to go out on TV and tell lies is one of the things that woke him up. I've got his book back there on the shelf. A Billion Years. And it's really good. Definitely recommend. And if you get the audiobook, he reads it. I listened to the audiobook and then got the physical copy. Okie dokie. Let me... poop. Esophageal cancer. What a tragedy. And I don't know. But he is going to live forever, you know what I mean? Because, what he did is really important, and it matters, and it still matters, and it will continue to matter. And I'm just really glad that he did what he did when he could.
Be worth it.
Okay, so we've got this Australian branch visit. There's one video that I was kind of curious about. I don't know if it's going to actually be what it might be. This guy is said to work for the hospital information department in Bethel. Blood is quite a personal issue on this channel, as somebody who had a chronic illness in the group and has needed blood transfusions to survive. So, let me set this up. You'll hear some lovely Australian accents.
It is a pleasure.
Just a free awkward silence, too. Just... Another inadvertent plug for the awkward silent supercut.
To have brother and sister Turner, along with brother and sister James, with us for the visit.
Oh, wait, can you guys hear this? That's a good question. Before I get too far into this, were you guys able to hear what he said? Oh, no. We can hear it. Okay, good. Good. Just wanted to make sure. And if you haven't already, please do like the stream and stuff so more people can see it. I guess.
Of the Australasia branch. We now would like to invite Brother Hassani James, who serves with the Hospital Information Department.
This is as big as I can make the screen.
Branch, to present the talk entitled, Endurance Makes Us Precious in God's Eyes.
I want you to think about these two circumstances involving two people. So you have a brother who is diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he is told...
Oh, God, I don't know, guys, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this after just learning that Mike Rinder died, and this is, for me, the most triggering subject. I don't know, because if he's going to be talking about people martyring themselves for their faith, let's save that. Let's get to the other one. One thing that lets me keep doing whatever you would call what I do about Watchtower is knowing my limits and not letting myself get unduly triggered. So this guy, you've definitely seen on JW Broadcasting. Good man, they give him a nice chunk of time there. 1.5, you say? Well, let's see if we can. Ooh, we can. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Much we've been inspired by her faithful example of endurance, and that we send an expression of our warm Christian love.
This is a ritual that they don't teach you about in school, kids, that within Jehovah's Witnesses, you are constantly sending love back and forth between congregations and states and countries with clapping. If you want to send your love, you just clap a lot. That's how it works.
And we did enjoy the local touch, the beautiful bowerbird that we saw on your brooch. That was very good. We've come to our last talk. Brother William
Imagine that pause on 1.0 speed. You know what I'm saying? That was pretty crazy, even on
Turner. He is serving as the headquarters representative and as a helper to the service committee. He will now give the last talk entitled Guard Against Weakening Influences. Brother Turner, you have our attention.
You know when you walk out the house and you realize you forget something and then it's just
I have no idea. What did that mean? Did he forget something? This must have been a you had to be there moment. Maybe he's like borrowing somebody's suit jacket.
Well, it is a tremendous privilege for my wife, Lynn, and me to be here with you, along with brother and sister James. And it's so nice to, if you know where we came from, New York, where prior to our leaving, there was cold, there was snow, there was ice. So how nice to be here with you and enjoy the sun and see your nice, sunny, smiling faces as well. And we also bring with us the warm love and greetings of the governing body, as well as the Bethel family in Fiji, as well as your brothers and sisters serving in the United States.
Okay, so I didn't mention that. I forgot that part of it. That you also receive love by clapping. Like, do you receive the love and then you also clap for that?
Well, in this talk, let's talk a little bit about this matter of guarding against weakening influences. I think you'd all agree that due to imperfection, we all acknowledge we have personal weaknesses and limitations. But interestingly, did you notice the title of this talk is not Guard Against Our Weaknesses? Instead, it's Guard Against Weakening Influences.
Influences with an accent on that middle E. All right, what do we think this is going to be about? I figured this would be worth watching when I saw that he was on it, because he's a broadcasting guy. The theme is weakening influences, but I did not watch enough of this to find out what these influences are, supposedly. So, I don't know. Just for juicy lore reasons, I hope it's like apostate stuff. Maybe they're talking about us, guys. Maybe what if he does that thing where he gives a vague scenario when he talks about Mark O'Donnell? Like, now imagine there's a Microsoft Teams meeting. You might just imagine one in Pennsylvania, for instance.
Why the difference? Well, a weakness might be something that we consider a personal defect or fault. Maybe we know there's a part of our personality we would like to improve. Perhaps we know that we get upset very easily. Well, those are weaknesses. Those are.
I got to slow this down a little bit. My brain can't quite handle
things
that.
that are very
I'm going to do 1.2.
obvious, clearly apparent, and they're things that we know we constantly have to deal with. But a weakening influence might be a little bit more subtle, a little harder to detect. You see, when we think of an influence is usually a power or force that affects something else. And now we're saying that.
Very good. Okay, so this is the first part of our JW Broadcasting Talk formula, the needless definition of a simple word that everybody knows.
This influence has a weakening effect. So clearly this is something that's not to our benefit.
So that means less
So the
strong.
working definition that we're going to use for this talk is a weakening influence is a force or thing that has the power to sway or affect a person's thinking or a course of action in a negative way.
I I thought it meant weakening in terms of a positive way. I'm glad they defined that. This is interesting, though, because sometimes they're just like, now the word time represents the passage of seconds, minutes, or hours. But here it's like they make up a scary cult term, weakening influence, and then they just get to make up whatever definition of that thing they want. So that's novel.
I'll just repeat that. It's a force or thing that
He'll
has the
repeat it
power
for
to
us.
sway or affect a person's thinking or course of action in a negative way. You see, weakening influences aggravate or worsen our own human weaknesses. And what it does, it hinders our ability to progress as well as to stand firm in the faith.
What, would you say that it weakens us? Is that what you would say, possibly?
Now, a nice biblical example of this is what happened in Ezra's day. Because when the Jewish nation was released from their bondage, we know that Jehovah had a job for them. He wanted them to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild his house. Now, keep in mind that when that directive was given, that many of the exiles, the original exiles, had now long died. So this was their children, the offspring, that were now given this direction to go back and rebuild Jehovah's temple. Well, that was...
They're very interested in this the last couple years. This was a big part of the convention a couple years ago, I think. It's really... It's very self-serving how they're spinning all this. Like, set aside the fact that they're basically co-opting the traumas of Jewish people for themselves, because the Jews were just proto-Jehovah's Witnesses until they lost their way, in which case they became false religion. It's also just, they use this whole thing to be like, well, some people during the exile didn't get to see the prophecies fulfilled in their day, but their children did. So you old Jehovah's Witnesses, don't worry. You might not live to see the fulfillment of all Jehovah's prophecies, but your kids will.
was not quite the easiest thing to do, because many of these ones had built houses in Babylon. They had nice gardens there in Babylon. To them, Babylon was the only home they ever knew. So to ask them now basically to uproot, relocate back to Jerusalem, well, that would take quite a bit of faith. But it was something that they did. They had a lot of backing. Ezra chapter 1, verse 6 shows they got support. They received material supplies, everything that they needed to go back and rebuild Jehovah's house. So they went, and Jehovah blessed their efforts. But you know, after some time, the weakness became evident. They forgot the reason they were to go back to Jerusalem in the first place. And so their thinking, their thoughts, it all went back to the things that they gave up. The comfortable life, the nice house, the beautiful gardens, everything that they left in Babylon.
This, for me, was one of the more effective things that Witnesses did that kept me in the religion, because they made a Bible drama out of this. Like, well, they made a movie. They made a little movie about this biblical account that they like to use to their advantage about, like, oh, wow, you think you want to go into the world. You think you want to leave Jehovah's organization and experience the things that we don't let you do within Jehovah's Witnesses. But what if the second you leave, Armageddon comes and then you die like a huge idiot? So you should never leave, because the second you leave, that's the exact second when Armageddon's going to come. And it's totally worked for me, because it's like, well, knowing my luck, which I'm not supposed to believe in luck, but anyway, I shouldn't leave, because my luck is the end would come the second I decided to leave. The second I think I'm successful, oh, then Armageddon will come. And the joke's on them, because I've not been successful, and Armageddon is coming anyway. According
and
to
Watchtower
them.
mentioned that those circumstances caused them to have a lack of focus. They were so focused on the material things. They forgot to be sure of the more important things. And eventually, because of that, they lost Jehovah's blessing. So the weakness, lack
They
of
forgot.
focus, materialism, that was the weakness that was very apparent to the Israelites. But how about the weakening influence? And did it have an effect on them? Turn with me, please.
Did the weakening influence weaken them? What a stupid question. Did the weakening influence have effect on them? Yeah. The influence of it weakened them. We understand
Your
what
Bible
you're
says,
saying,
Ezra
sir.
chapter 4.
He's going to read the Bible.
They in God, and we have been thousands of Cyrus, the king of Persia, round about were just like modern day bullies.
Oh,
They were
wait, let's hear
hostile
this.
to build adversaries. So all the people in the land round about were denied any part in helping the Israelites rebuild Jehovah's house. And you know what the adversaries
Incredible
began to do?
reference.
They began to act just like modern day bullies. They were hostile. They were mean. They were cruel. And they did everything in their power to make sure that that temple did not get built. And take a look at what happened. Let's look at verse 4. Then the people of the land were continually discouraging the people of Judah and disheartening them from building.
Discouraging them from building. That's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to a group of religious people. It's people making videos telling them not to build any more kingdom halls. No, I just made it about me. That's really weird. I actually don't think that that's... Not to queue up an episode if that's not what's happening, but I don't think that's what's happening. Like, I don't think that anybody is criticizing Jehovah's Witnesses, at least not in a way that's going to reach Jehovah's Witnesses' ears, like, just by the mere fact that they're building things. But, ooh, maybe they're going to mention... I'm just spitballing. I'm curious to see, like, if he's going to make any unique points that we haven't heard a million times before. I wonder if he'll address, like, the, I think, very real sentiment from what I've heard from some PMOs, that there are folks in the LDC who really do feel a little disillusioned with these building projects, because why are we doing this? Like, why are we making a movie studio? We don't need it. And so maybe there's a little bit of that.
And if you note the footnote there in verse 4, literally weakening their hands. So
We know what weakening
influence,
means.
It was fear of man. Did it affect the Israelites? Yes, it did. Was their spiritual progress hindered? Absolutely. And you have this, the influence of fear of man.
Hang on a second. This is they just inserted so many JW terms into this Bible account. Their spiritual progress was hindered. That's not like a concept that would have existed for like the ancient Jewish people, that they had to make spiritual progress. That's a thing that you do in Jehovah's Witnesses so that you can climb up the social hierarchy within the group. Like, you progress to becoming a regular pioneer or a servant or an elder or a special branch guy who gets to give talks, like whatever his name is that I forget from earlier. I'm delighted to tell you I don't know what this means, and I do appreciate the super chat from Yes Man, $5. And my team cameraman or team Skibbity, I refuse to know what this means. It sounds like Gen Z tomfoolery, and this is a channel for old cranky nerds.
Coupled with their own weakness of materialism and a lack of focus, you see what it did to their faith? It just caused it to plummet, to diminish. They quit building Jehovah's temple. And so for over the next 15 years, the Jews went back to building nice houses, beautiful gardens, and the temple of Jehovah never got past the foundation.
Why does God need a special building? Why? Why is that so important? Like, hey, I know I live up here, but I want you to build something for me down there. No, I'm not going to, like, go in there and talk to you. Just make me a special building where you can take your dead animals and stuff and just burn it for me, because I like to smell it. I like to sniff the dead stuff you burn for me. Stop building your houses that you supposedly need to live in while you're in exile.
So can we appreciate how the two work together? You see, weaknesses, weakening influences, they're not the same. But when combined, they're deadly. They aggravate. They hinder our spiritual progress, and our ability to stand firm in the faith becomes jeopardized.
Good. I am not ashamed. You should not. Is that Gen Alpha foolery? I'm not even ready for that. I'm not even ready for Gen Alpha tomfoolery. Somebody said that they drank an ungodly amount of tea. And I drank an ungodly amount of coffee. Frankly, I feel like I could have, for me, that's like 2 cups. That's really all I ever try to have a day. If I have 3, it's a problem. By golly, I want more. Sorry. I just needed to get that out of my system. Nobody tell me what skibbity means. I've enjoyed not knowing.
Now, what we'd like to do for the remainder of this talk is let's start to personalize this a little bit. Because there are many weakening influences that we may encounter in the world today, but we need to know what they are. And there are many, but today we're going to discuss two. The first is discouraging circumstances. The second
Boo.
is time-wasting distractions.
What? These sound boring. That's boring. Why can't he be like, number 1, YouTube. Number 2, TikTok. Number 3, Reddit. They should, if he wants to personalize it, you should personalize it to the kind of stuff I'm interested in.
And as we just go through each one, remember the goal, the title of this talk, how do we guard against them? So let's take that first one, discouraging circumstances. A discouraging circumstance might be defined as anything that robs us of our joy. And clearly this is something that's disheartening, it's depressing, it's something that we don't like to go through. And it could be any number of things. Statements made by other people, opposition to the truth, family problems, personality clashes, personal circumstances, financial difficulties.
Not personal circumstances, no!
Major health problems. Now, obviously, we know, even as one of Jehovah's servants, we're happy to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a beautiful thing to be part of his organization, but that still does not guarantee that every day is going to be a great and fantastic day for us.
Even though angels are helping. Angels are there all the time helping Jehovah's people. They're not going to help you with your problems necessarily, but they might. Or maybe they just did in a way that you don't know and can't tell because it's invisible. Just kind of convenient, because if you leave the organization and your life has ups and downs, that's because of Satan. But when you're in the organization, your life has ups and downs also because Satan, but because Satan is trying to get you to leave Jehovah's Witnesses.
Even servants of Jehovah get sad at times. But we must not let discouraging circumstances slow us down or weaken our resolve in our service to Jehovah. Now, you know, we said endure in our service. Brother James just explained this topic of endurance beautifully, because endurance is such a key quality in helping us guard against weakening influences. But endurance...
What's going on with this guy? Why is he saying it like that? Weakening influences the economy
is not merely putting up with adversity. It means that we have hope, we have godly courage that allows us to deal with the situation. And then we recognize that there are some things that we just might not be able to change. But we also realize that we don't have to be controlled by whatever situation we're going through. See, we have hope, we have confidence.
We can't change it, but also, yeah, you can by just praying more.
That Jehovah will help us. And because of that, then that enables you and me to deal with even extraordinary challenges and situations.
What bothers me about this kind of stuff is, like, what about all the people who aren't Jehovah's Witnesses that overcome terrible situations all the time? They make documentaries and TV shows about people like that, like all day, every day. People all over the world are experiencing adversities and putting on a brave face and overcoming crazy things, and they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. So what is the explanation for that? Like, why is your version of that as a witness more special than a Muslim's version of that, or just a Christian who's not your kind of Christianity's version of that, or mine? Like, everybody has to go through adversity. You stupid idiot, whose name I didn't even bother to remember.
Now, if you ever wondered to yourself, how exactly will Jehovah do that? How will Jehovah help you and me get through those extraordinary
He's going to be specific.
situations?
It's going to be really specific.
Well, we don't have to wonder. The Bible tells us.
We don't have to wonder.
Turn with me, please, to 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Verses 7 through 9, and then verse 16.
He's still going.
It says, however, we have this treasure in earthen vessels, so that the power beyond what is normal may be God's and not from us. We are hard pressed in every way, but not cramped beyond movement. We are perplexed, but not absolutely with no way out. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are knocked down, but not destroyed. And then verse 16.
They get knocked down, but they get up again. Well, this is boring. Let's see if he gets to anything cooler.
Terrible challenges. Whenever we need something beyond, maybe just by way of illustration, we might liken it.
Oh, hang on a second. Before he gets to this, he mentioned the power beyond what is normal, and in the William Malenfant talk that I went over in the last couple videos on the main feed, he goes on a little rant about that too. I didn't really have time to get into it, but the concept of like the power beyond what is normal, it doesn't really make any sense because like you don't know what, like obviously when you face situations that aren't normal to your life, you're going to have to rise to match them anyway, as if you didn't have Holy Spirit, because you know that Jehovah's not going to remove the obstacle from your path. So you can't actually know that he helped you through it, especially because people in other religions also seem to get the power beyond what is normal to endure terrible things all the time, and they don't care. George Turner, you are correct. I believe that is his name, Georgie Porgy.
To a father who's teaching his young son how to swim. So the father takes his young son, he puts him in a body of water, and the little boy is so excited. Once he hits that water, boy, he's moving. So the father takes his young son, he puts him in a body of water.
I thought he said bottle of water. That's why I rewound. I got a little excited, but nope. You're off the hook this time, George Turner.
And the little boy is so excited. Once he hits that water, boy, he's moving, right? So he's moving his hands, he's kicking his feet. So he has power. He's exerting whatever power he has, but it still may not, he may not have enough kick to keep himself afloat. Well, that's where the father comes in. Because now, here you have the father behind him, giving him enough push, keeping him up in order to keep him afloat. And that's really what Jehovah does with you and me. He allows us to use whatever power we have to go.
Wow, apparently it just plays the drop over top of the video and doesn't pause it at all. That's unfortunate. Okay, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Let's see what this next thing is.
And look at if you and I ever have to figure out how to deal or face a discouraging circumstance. Turn with me, please, to 2 Corinthians. So that I might not, about an obstacle that he had to endure, Paul's vision, it may have been impaired somewhat.
God, there's so much more to this talk, too. I wanted to see if he talks about apostasy or something.
Occasions that it be removed. Now, interestingly, Jehovah did not grant Paul's request. Now, he did answer his prayer. It's just that he didn't do it in the way Paul thought he would. This
guy's hitting like all my pet peeves. Your prayer will be answered, but just not in a way you think. So that there's really no way of knowing whether the prayer was answered or not. So if it seems like the opposite of what you wanted happens, despite your prayers, that just means that Jehovah answered your prayer in a different way. And if it didn't seem like you got an answer at all, that's because you might just have to wait. Or he did answer it in a way that you just haven't perceived yet. You need to think back on your experiences.
It could have been discouraging to Paul. I mean, let's think about who we're talking about. Here's a man that wrote 2/3 of the Christian. Imagine Paul and Jehovah says no. Or affected his thinking, or he relied on to carry out this in Corinthians chapter 12. Well, considering the fact that Paul had a murderous past, so
come on,
that's enough. Now, if that's what Jehovah meant, by no
okay, hang on. I want to see what this is.
Kindness that Paul had a relationship with Jehovah at all, much less one to serve as an apostle. So Jehovah may have very well been telling Paul that your privilege of discipleship is sufficient, that's enough. Now, if that's what Jehovah meant, by no means does that mean that Jehovah was being cold or heartless, or that he was abandoning the Apostle Paul.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that was just the if-then fallacy, which I think is their favorite. I think that must be their favorite fallacy. It's like, maybe Jehovah was saying this, and if he meant that, then we certainly could not conclude blah, 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 blah. Odd.
Now, we know that because of what he tells him next. If you look back in verse 9, after he...
I apologize. I really just want him to get past Paul and get to what witnesses would call the application. But like I talked about in that JW recipe video, they will take a Bible passage that is 4 words long and stretch it to 40 minutes of like fan fiction, essentially.
Weakness. My power is being made perfect in weakness. That meant that the strength of God's power would be observed in the weakness of the Apostle Paul, as well
Yeah,
as
he
the
just
manner
said the same
in which
thing,
he
slightly
handled
reworded.
his particular circumstance. So when individuals would take a look at the Apostle Paul,
When he said his strength was his weakness, what he meant was that his weakness was his strength.
they looked at the things that he went through. You see, they could be encouraged by his example. I'd like to share an experience with you of a sister in the United States. She was 34 years old.
Okay, this will be good. This is more what I want. I want them to for my sanity, I can't hear them like read a verse and go on their whole 20-minute thing about how they're going to apply the Bible. Like, it's just, I've spent enough of my life doing that. I want to hear what they're telling Jehovah's Witnesses they should be gleaning from these Bible verses.
2 children, but she was dying of cancer. And she told the circuit overseer that one day as she was going to get her regular treatments, that everything just sort of hit her all at once. The realization that she was going to die, that she was not going to see her children grow up, and she would be there to take care of them, it just terribly depressed her. Depressed to the point where she said she just completely shut down. She stopped attending the meetings, stopped going to the ministry, stopped doing any studying. And she said as she went along with this particular situation, when her life just hit rock bottom, when she just felt that there was just absolutely nothing else that she could do, she decided the only thing that she could do was pray.
So this is not great, in my opinion. The fact that cults always seem to come back into your life or come into your life for the first time when you hit rock bottom. That's a frequent story on jw.org. Somebody's life hits rock bottom, and this person stopped going to meetings, seemingly because they were disillusioned with the fact that none of these promises had ever happened, and that was depressing to them. But because they were a Jehovah's Witness, they're not equipped to deal with the outside world. They have no resources or close friendships with anybody. So inevitably, they're going to have a lot of challenges if they just cut off contact with the organization. And then a lot of times they end up going back because they feel like, wow, the organization was right. Life sucked after I left. It's like, yeah, they made sure that it would.
And she told the circuit overseer that one night she just poured her heart out to God and supplicated him like she had never done before. Well, that must have been one incredible prayer. Because she said after that, she was so strengthened from that prayer that from that point forward, she made all her meetings, she even auxiliary pioneered, and she continued to do all of this while she was still going through her treatments. Well, sadly, the cancer did get the best of her. But you know what was so interesting is that the entire time while she was alive, the brothers and sisters in the congregation began to notice her. And they began to...
Okay, so I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit, but I just want to, we just talked about Mike Rinder earlier, who just passed away from cancer. And like, look how loved and supported he is outside of Scientology, But if Mike had stayed a Scientologist, Scientology would have just weaponized his story and said, what? See how amazing Scientology was for his life? See how great it was and how it helped him? Like, any religion can weaponize any story like this, which is why they're bullshit. And you cannot trust like anecdotal evidence and stories about how a prayer made you feel to prove that a thing is true or not. That's why facts are important.
Jehovah says his power would become demonstrative and it would be observable through each and every one of us. It would serve as an outstanding witness to Jehovah and people would praise him for it. But clearly, Paul got the point. Because you notice how he concludes verse 9?
Did you notice? Did you notice that?
And I am powerful. And maybe you've experienced that as well. So think about your situation. Are you enduring some sort of discouraging circumstance? There are many. Maybe it's a health issue that affects how much you can do. Maybe it's worries, concerns for aging parents. If you're a family head, perhaps you carry the burden of how are you going to take care of your family.
It's very hard to be a man these days, and George Turner sympathizes.
Maybe you're the only person in your family who's a worshiper of Jehovah, and you receive opposition because of it. Maybe you're dealing with advancing age. You can't serve Jehovah as you once did in the past. See how this list of discouraging circumstances, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. But
good point. Good point by this commenter, by the way. So this is Gingerful. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. This part pisses me off, actually. She prays, then she acted in harmony with the prayer, and lo and behold, she came back to meetings. What are the chances? Yeah, because they always say that your prayers will only come true if you act in harmony with them, and if what you are praying for is in line with Jehovah's will. So clearly, going back to Jehovah's Witnesses is what witnesses will tell you is Jehovah's will. And it still is going to take effort. You're not magically going to show up at the meeting, so you have to make the effort to go, which means you have to act in harmony with your prayers, which means you might as well have not prayed about it. You could just go and not pray, and you would still be at the meetings. Like, there's a lot of, I know for a long time, I would go through eras with my faith where I had doubts and stuff, and I wouldn't pray, and I would feel bad about it, but I would still go to meetings, you know? And it's like, well, the Holy Spirit didn't get me there because I didn't pray about it. I don't know.
guard against it. The first thing we do is be assured that Jehovah knows what each and every one of us are going through.
Just be assured, by the way. Just be assured of that. All right, let's just skip ahead a little bit. I don't want to listen to this whole thing. We got other stuff we can
So
talk
I told
about.
myself I'm going to watch this particular TV show.
Ooh.
Circumstances. Well, let's move to our second weakening influence, and that is time-wasting distractions. Now, how would you define a time-wasting distraction? What do we mean by that? And maybe for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to use myself as an example. Now, I like watching TV from time to time. So there have been times where I've told myself,
What a relatable fella. And, you know, he's not going to tell you that he watches a lot of TV or he watches it too much, even as an offhanded joke, because then that would call into question his spiritual qualifications. But he is a normal gentleman who watches television from time to time.
I'm going to watch this particular TV show, and then I'm going to get up and I'll do some studying. Now, I know what some of you are already thinking, right? Why don't you study first and then watch TV, right? And you are absolutely right.
Wow, what a judgmental group in the audience. I didn't think that at all, by the way. I guess that's how you know I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness, not a current Jehovah's Witness. That really did not enter my mind. So I think it's funny that he felt the need to preempt that.
But don't judge me. We'll talk about that the next time we visit Australia.
Don't judge me, said the JW
So there I am,
elder.
watching TV, right? And one show turns into two shows, and then I'm tired. Then it's time to go to bed. Now, maybe I can get away with that every once in a while, but if I did that on a regular basis, well, what has now happened? Well, now it's become a time-wasting distraction.
No. Also, I don't think that there are many people on the other side of this argument. Like, yeah, you shouldn't watch too much TV, obviously, but that's not what witnesses mean. For him, 1 or 2 TV shows every night before going to bed would be a distraction, because you should be studying Jehovah's Witness publications and you're and practicing for the ministry and watching all the new videos on the website. Like, I am still amazed at the amount of free time I have now that I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. Like, I'm able to be so much more productive and just do a lot more things because I did not appreciate the amount of time I was spending for this group. And any amount of time you are not spending in the group. I occasionally watch television. That might be too much. Sorry, you might need to examine that.
Because it's something that I'm doing at the expense of something that's more important. Now, I use the example of TV watching, but really we can insert almost anything else in there. Social media, sports, recreational activities, hobbies, personal interests. And obviously, none of those things are wrong within themselves. In fact, a reasonable amount of relaxation is a good thing. It keeps us healthy. It can bring about refreshment.
We're not a cult. We acknowledge that a certain appropriate amount of recreation is refreshing. Just be careful. Make sure you're studying every cartoon we put on the website.
But isn't it good also to recognize the world makes very heavy demands of our time? and it's also going to offer us many
Projection.
distractions. And we know our time is just so valuable, so precious. We have obligations. We know studying the Bible, worshiping together, preaching the good news, those are priorities for us. Those are very important things.
I mean, that's got to be the number one resentment of anybody who leaves a cult, is the time that you lost while you were in it, because you realize it was a huge waste of time. And that's why, more than anything, the sunk cost fallacy keeps people in high control groups and conspiratorial mindsets, is because you've invested so much effort and energy in doing this thing that if you had to acknowledge that it was wrong, that you were wasting your time doing something that wasn't true at all, that would be completely devastating to your ego, which everybody has. I'm not saying you have to be like an egomaniac. I'm saying everybody has an ego, and nobody likes being proven wrong about something. So like, our brains are incentivized to hold on to our existing beliefs. And I really think that that's the main thing that keeps people in. Like, you're old and sick, like that one sister he talked about earlier. You might think, screw it, I'm going to use the rest of my life outside the witnesses. But then you hear a talk like this and you're like, oh, that's Jehovah telling me to stay in, because you're looking for any excuse to stay in. You don't want to have to change and admit that you were wrong about stuff.
1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16, Paul says, we have to pay constant attention to ourselves and to our teaching. And he said that because he knew that if we didn't, you see, all of these time-wasting distractions that can come into our life could serve as obstacles, could serve as weakening influences for us. But when you read the rest of that verse, Paul explains why we have to be so careful. We save ourselves. So we go back to our question. What's going to help us guard against time-wasting distractions? And guard against the dangerous force of weakening influences.
He didn't talk. That was bullshit. And I'm sorry that I wasted your time on it. I'm sorry. You deserve better. And so we're going to do better. We're going to do Redder. We're going to go on Reddit. That's what I was saying. There was an interesting post on the XJW Reddit. Hey, whoa, Micah Zippy. Hey, Micah, who I know from back in the day. Is it happening again? Or can you hear me now? Man, so many people are about to have access to the Awkward Silence Supercut. Wait, I need some kind of confirmation that I can... Okay, we're good now. Oh, man. Thanks so much, guys. Also, I'm so sorry. I totally missed a shout-out earlier to QC Man, who became a YouTube member and gifted a membership. And Low left at $4.99 and a joke. I sued an airline for losing my luggage and won, but they still swear they didn't lose the case. Fabulous. We love to see it. Okay, so I wanted to see this post, which I kind of bookmarked for myself. Jeffrey Jackson casually lying.
In 2003. That's when I received another very short letter from the governing body telling me that I was going to be permanently assigned to New York. My reaction? A little different this time. I was shocked, dismayed, overwhelmed, in fact, even horrified. Why? Because I thought I knew where Jehovah wanted me to be. And I certainly didn't expect this change of assignment. And additionally, I was never had on my wish list working in America. So with those thoughts running through my mind, I found for about 3 days, I could hardly speak to anyone. I was found sitting on a chair, just staring into space, a blank look on my face.
Okay, interesting. I forget what the lie is. It's in the comments, but what a revealing comments. I find that fascinating. It does make sense. Hey, listen, as somebody who just shaved his beard yesterday and realized that that beard was doing me a few favors, I think we have to consider this possibility. So he before we get to the contradiction, I just want to deconstruct what he said here because this is really fascinating. Like, when I think about it, it does make sense that if you were called to be the head of what you see as the one true religion on earth, and you're called to be part of the governing body, that you would be somewhat catatonic. Like, that's an insane level of power. That's essentially just anything that any Jehovah's Witness could ever expect happening to you. So that's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. But
In
here's
2003.
the contradiction. Compare that to his version from his 2015 life story.
In 2003, Jenny and I were transferred from the translation department in Fiji branch to translation services in Paterson, New York. It seemed like a dream come true. We became part of a team that helps to develop the translation of our literature into additional languages. For the next 2 years or so, we had the privilege of visiting various countries to help train translation teams.
I don't know. I've never really gone for a Jeffrey Jackson before. So the person says, which version is the truth? Who can say? But they are very different versions of the same event. Maybe he's following the example of the Gospels, giving completely different versions of that same event that are contradictory and irreconcilable. Wait, is that true? Also interesting that neither version mentions how his first wife, Jenny, felt about the move to New York, especially since she was the one fighting breast cancer at the time. Ooh, not cool, Jeffrey Jackson. So I see. In his 2015 written testimony in the Watchtower publication, essentially the modern day scriptures for Jehovah's Witnesses, he said it felt like a dream come true. How exciting. But in this, he's like, I was so overwhelmed and really didn't know how to deal with it at all. I don't know. Is this actually a contradiction, or can you reconcile that? I feel like you could reconcile that, or he could maybe in his brain by saying like, well, yeah, I couldn't speak for 3 days because I was so excited to have that amount of power over so many people. I don't know. There was another thing that somebody posted from this talk. I wonder if I sort by new. I feel like I saw it this morning. New today. Oh. Okay. So this is what the attitude should be when you receive a change of assignments.
Have you ever received a change of assignment? I'm sure all of us have. But how did you react each time that you received a change of assignment? Well, if we're brutally honest, we probably would have to admit our reaction was perhaps not always the same and maybe not as good each time.
Interesting. You know, the thing that he's doing here is like, a lot of times the assignment is you got a demotion. You are now, you're used to being a Bethelite whose room and board and all your meals were covered and you didn't have to worry about health insurance and stuff. And now we're assigning you to Detroit and you're going to have to get a job and figure out how to do a job resume for the first time in your entire life and pay taxes and find a place to live. Like that's more so the change in assignment that requires a PR campaign like what Jeffrey Jackson's doing here. Cool. I think that's basically it that I wanted to cover. But we can just look real quick and see if there's anything new. Presumably that talk, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. I did have one last thing I wanted to go over. It's the latest Watchtower. So actually, let's go to how to overcome doubts. Now, I think we might have tried to go over this on a stream before, and it kind of ended up being a dud. But I did just want to comment on it. Oh my god. Yeah, we're going to have to stop because I cannot talk. I lost the ability to speak. So, how to overcome doubts. You would think this would be an exciting article and an important one for Jehovah's Witnesses, because I would have really welcomed an article like this when I was a Jehovah's Witness, because I often had doubts. But then, like, the first footnote, it says, people of all ages have doubts, asterisk. Expressions explain. In this article, we are discussing doubts that cause us to be uncertain about our value to Jehovah, or about the wisdom of decisions we have made. These are not the kinds of doubts referred to in the Bible that can give evidence of a lack of faith in Jehovah and his promises. But then, so why bother? Like, why bother? I think little articles like this, honestly, let Watchtower be like a kind of a manipulative abuser, because they're like, we know you probably feel like you're insignificant and you don't matter. And that may be true in Satan's world, but not to us. You matter as long as you're an active Jehovah's Witness who's doing your best, and your best is good enough, right? You could probably do a little bit more here and there just to make sure, and also never sin, and also never leave. So I'm just like, why bother making this article? Something that would actually be helpful is helping people overcome doubts in the religion. Okay, well, I'm going to, I think, close out the stream here. We had a lot of people watching. Thank you so much. I'm going to put some links in the description. Please do subscribe to my second channel, which I think is now called Small Worldly or Alt Worldly Live. We're going to do more streams there. There are stream highlights posted there. Lots of clips you can go and watch right now of various segments, so you don't have to watch an hours-long thing to get to the good bits. And yeah, go over there and subscribe to that. But this was an important enough subject. I wanted it to be on the main channel. And I also want to, I want to do my thing. I don't know what that had to do with anything. I want to do my thing. All right. Somebody said, play us out with the YouTube poop. Well, all right. Okay, guys. If you want to see, if you haven't claimed one of these gift memberships, this is the kind of thing you could be seeing over on the premium feed. Let me pull up this edit. I'll play part of it that people have not seen before. It's all gold, obviously. Wait, not this. Let's get our ducks in a row. I'll play out with the supercut. I have not played the. Yeah, okay. Let's look at Kenneth Cook. We'll get to Kenneth Cook here. Kenny Cookie, as we lovingly call him on the channel. Thanks, and like and leave comments and stuff. And good.
An ice cream sundae? It's not complete unless it includes chocolate sauce, whipped cream, sprinkles, and what else? The cherry on top, right? And Jesus hated that. He hated it. Jesus hated ice cream. But I get it, and we comply. Well, Jehovah dealt with greedy Achan. Jehovah's hatred for a lying tongue. Jehovah uses his faithful angels, and his faithful angels, Jehovah sees this.
Jesus and the faithful angels. They have not only witnessed Jehovah.
Jesus and the angels witnessed Jehovah's. These faithful angels imitated their heavenly Father, Jehovah. So like Jesus and the faithful angels, Jehovah is an amazing, one and only true God. We get it. Jehovah's helping us, and we comply, and we love it. I look forward to receiving a visit from the elders.